Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video we are going to discuss about do we have an alternative approach to the way we see exception screenshots. So we are going to have an answer that can we have an alternative approach to see the exception screenshots which are generated during the attended or an unattended automations. Having said that, let us see the agenda for this video. First, we are going to see what are the exception screenshots, and we will try to understand what exactly are these screenshots, when they are generated and how they are generated. Post that, we will see how we can reuse a TakeScreenshot.xaml which is provided by RE framework, and how can we utilize this XAML in any of the automation we are working with. After that, we are going to have an answer to the question that do we have an alternative approach to save the screenshots? If yes, then what is that and how can we have that? There is a invoke code which is being used in this demonstration. That code is responsible for getting the alternative approach to save screenshot. We will try to write that code step by step in this video. To begin with, let us see what exactly is a exception screenshot is and when do we exactly require the exception screenshots. As the name suggests, exception screenshots are a screenshot of the screen which is taken whenever an exception is occurred, primarily during an unattended automation, but we can use the exception screenshot for the attended automations as well. Let me explain this with the help of an example. Assuming that I have a process, the process is supposed to read the emails. Once the emails are read successful, the process is supposed to open a web portal. In the web portal, the automation has to enter some of the details. When the entire data is keyed, it scrapes some of the data from the website. The data is pasted in an Excel sheet. All the manipulation of the data, preparing of the charts, Excel graphs is done in the Excel. And once this process is completed, the data is supposed to be saved in an folder for the business to get it reviewed. So as you have seen, every of this step is an unattended, and this automation can be triggered in an unattended mode. Now assuming that this process is already deployed in production and there are multiple unattended robots which are working in production and executing this process on a timely manner. Now, someday what might happen is you may receive an email, but when the bot attempts to open the web portal, there it encounters an exception. The exception could be selector not found, the web page is not available, the website URL is changed, or any sort of exception which you might have think of in the web automation. So let's say there is some exception which have occurred while keying in the data. And so when the bot was keying in the first name, the last name field was not available in the portal. Or let's say when the bot was expected to key in 10 fields, only 8 fields were available. When the ninth field came, the Internet Explorer or the browser which we are interacting crashes. Now what happens next? The Excel report will be wrong, the charts will be wrong. Now in this scenario, there is a concept of exception screenshot. What that will do, it will take the screenshot of the error where the error has occurred. So whenever the process encounters an exception, particularly not only in the web, but let's say during any time of the automation, if it encounters an exception, what the bot will do, it will capture the screenshot of the image, the current state of the automation, and it will store the screenshots in a folder which we call exception screenshot. So this is a mechanism which is properly given in the robotics enterprise framework. So let us see what exactly how the robotics enterprise framework deals with it, and then we are going to see is there an alternative approach to view the exception screenshots. Okay, so assuming that this is a website which we have to key in the data, so this is a website of RPA challenge which is available at the URL called rpachallenge.com. So the good thing about this page is that whenever I click refresh or I click submit, the position of the field changes. So if you'll see now, email is available at the top, then phone number, then last name, and when I click submit, this field changes, right? So now what happens if I attempt to key in some data in the automation, sometime I might encounter an exception, but when the process is running in an unattended mode, you might not able to get those details, right? Now you can relate this automation to any of the automation you are doing. be it an Excel automation, be it an SAP application, any of the desktop application, or for that matter SAP, or any of the field where you are keying in the data and you want to exactly know that what was the scenario where the bot break. So for that, what I have done is I have created a bot. Okay, so I will go to my UiPath Studio, and I have created a bot which is supposed to open the browser and key in some details, and we will see how exactly the exception screenshot concept works. Okay, so let me go to the project folder. As of now, this is my project folder, and you will see the exception folder is blank. Now what happens when I trigger the process? I go here, and if I run the file, now the bot is supposed to open the Internet Explorer. It will open the IE, it will try to key in the details, and I have intentionally put the timeout to 5 seconds. That means it will encounter an exception, and we are here we are seeing how exactly the exception screenshot works in the UiPath world. Okay, so it has tried. I have given 3 names to enter in this field, and I have intentionally put the delays to 5 seconds, so it will encounter exceptions. Okay, so now let's see how exactly the exception screenshots work. Okay, if I go to the output, you will see the selector was not found because in the automation I have intentionally kept this selector as a fixed selector, and the delay I have put as 3 seconds, so it is not able to get this element, and for 3 items it has executed. So now what would have happened? So when the try in the exception, it has taken the screenshots, and the screenshots are available here. Now if I go here, you will see these 3 files are available here as screenshots, right? So if I open it, this is the first screenshot. If I click next, this is the second, and this is the third. So in the ideal scenario, this can be of any type of screenshot, and this exception handling mechanism is already provided by UiPath for us. Now the question here is, it is working fine for us. Is there an alternative way of looking at the exception screenshots? I propose yes, there is. Let us look at that. Okay, so I go back to the UiPath Studio again. Okay, and in the project I have one more version of the same exception screenshot, which I call the version 2. Let's remove this debugger. Now what is the alternative? So the as an alternative, what will happen is, in the project folder there would be an Excel. The Excel will be blank in the first place, but whenever we run the automation, it will not only log the exception here, but will also write the exception in front of it. Let us see that in action, and post that we are going to see how exactly I accomplish that. So if I again go to the my UiPath Studio, this is the version 2. Let me go here and run the file. Okay, so now the same process will execute again, but this time instead of logging the just logging the exceptions in the folder, it will add some more details. So let us see how what is that. It has opened the file, it will encounter an exception, it will take a screenshot, save it, and it will do it thrice because I am looping the same process thrice. Second time, okay, and the third time. Let us wait for the execution to complete. Okay, so the execution is completed. If I go to the output, the screenshots are the same, but now if I go to my project folder and if I open the Excel, the exception details, okay, so the Excel is now available. The Excel is having 3 columns. The first column is the exception which has occurred. For our case, the exception which has occurred was selector not found, so it has printed the exception in the first column. Next, it has printed the location of the screenshot, and in the third column it has embedded the screenshot in the Excel itself. Now in your automation or in your scenario, you can add more details to it. For example, the details can be the transaction ID, the detail can be the application which was executing, the detail can be the Excel sheet, the detail, any of the details which you think is relevant to the process can be added to the subsequent tabs. Now what is the benefit which I get by using the screenshot embedded here? I can easily correlate to this Excel. I can always put a filter here. I can easily see the screenshot For example, if I am working in a data entry kind of automation and I wanted to know the fields, right? So for example, in this screenshot, I can easily see this was the stage when the automation failed. So I can easily filter out the transaction ID from the Excel and then take the next step accordingly. Next, you can add more details. You can have different sheets here for business exception, system exception, and then you can easily refer to this, and the end you can easily refer to this Excel and take the next steps in order to get rid of the exception. Next, in the coming part of the video, we are going to see both the approaches which we have seen in the video. I will show you how to use the exception screenshot which is provided by RE framework, and I will show a step-by-step detail that how we can use this approach also. Let us start the process by looking at how we can store the exception screenshot in the folder which we have seen in the demonstration. To begin with, you have to go to the UiPath Studio. I am in home and you have to click on the Robotics Enterprise Framework. Why we are clicking on the Robotics Enterprise Framework? We are not using the Robotics Enterprise Framework, but we are using a XAML from the Robotics Enterprise Framework that is called the TakeScreenshot Activity. So you have to just open and Robotics Enterprise template. I have just hit on create. It will just open. Let us just wait for the RE framework to get load. Once the RE framework is available, all you have to do is you have to go to the projects. Under framework, you will see something called TakeScreenshot.xaml. So this is a plug and play XAML which is available in the official Robotics Enterprise template. We can use this TakeScreenshot.xaml in any of the process, be it a sequence, be it a flowchart. You can use this XAML and leverage this one. So what we have to do is we have to simply go to the project folder. If I just open this, open project folder, I have this available here in the framework. We have something called the take screenshot.xaml. We have to just copy this one and take it to our process, right? So if I go here, now I have just copied this one, and for our example, I have created this sequence. So this is not a robotics enterprise framework. This is just a normal process. So we have taken the take screenshot XAML and we have pasted it here. So now if I go to the exception screenshot, I open the folder, project folder. So this take screenshot.xaml is copied from the RE framework. Now let us see how we can leverage that in the process to take the screenshot and save it in a folder. For that, let me go to the design. I will create a new sequence. We call it save screenshot folder. Okay, so I missed the spelling. Folder, hit create. Okay, so now here we are going to see how to save the screenshots, right? So for example, we are working in this automation only. So assuming that whenever this automation encounters some exception, we have to take the screenshot and save it in the folder which we have seen in the video, right? So how to do that? Let us first quickly take a open browser. I will take an open browser activity here. Let me point it to this URL. I will hard code this here. Next, what I want to do is I want to type the name, right? So I want to type into some name and where I want to type, I will just go to the RPA challenge site and let's say I want to type in the first name. Okay, and what I want to type, I want to type, say, my name. So now what will happen is when the bot will execute, it will open the browser and it will type here, right? And let me go here and reduce the timeout to, the default timeout is 30 seconds. So let us just change it to 1 second. It won't load in 1 second and the automation will break. Okay, so before that, let me just put a delay so that the page is open and the screenshot is available. I will put a delay of, say, 3 seconds. And however, the best part of this website is whenever you click on the submit or the refresh, the layout changes and the selector will fail. So definitely this thing is going to give an exception. Now here we are going to see whenever we encounter an exception, how do we use the take screenshot activity which we have taken from the RE framework. So for that, what we have to do is the activity or the flow which we think might give an exception, we have to encapsulate that thing in a try catch block. I will right click on the activity and select surround with try catch block. So this means that whenever there is an exception, you just go and execute this guy. So I am selecting the exception. I can directly select the selector not found exception here, but let us settle with the exception type. Okay, and what we want to do is we want to take a screenshot of the exception when the exception occurred, and we want to save it in a folder, right? So if you go to the project, we have already copy pasted this thing, right, which take screenshot.xaml. We have taken this from the robotics enterprise template. So how we can use it, we have to just drag and drop it in the flow. And if you will see in the open workflow, let us just navigate what exactly the take screenshot does. So it, first of all, whenever we call this XAML, it take the screenshot of the entire screen. Then if the folder is available, it will use that folder. If that folder is not available, it will create a folder in the project directory here, and it will save the screenshot. So as you can see, RE framework has done the exception handling, that if you don't provide the folder also, then also it will store the screenshots by creating a folder and appending it with the date and time name. Okay, so this is a plug and play XAML. Let's see how to use that. So if I go to the import arguments, it expects two arguments from me. So what is the input folder name, and what is the file path? So it is an out argument, so this will give me the file path, that where exactly it has saved the screenshot. So as of now, we have to just deal with the in folder. So in my project, I have already, if I just go back to my project, so in my project I already have this exception screenshot folder, right? So why not use that one? Or you can just refer it to any of the location. I'll delete this. I will just copy this path. I have already folder of exception screenshot. If you don't provide the folder also, then also this XAML will create a folder for you. But since I already have a folder, I will just use this folder and hit OK. That's it. So this is how easy it is to use the exception screenshot XAML from the RE framework. Okay, so if I just open it, it will open, and then exception, it will log. And let us do one thing. Let us put a right line here, so that we are aware that what was the type of exception we have encountered. And I will type here exception dot message. Okay, let us go ahead and run the file. I go here and run the file. Okay, it has opened the RPA challenge. Next it will wait for 3 seconds. Then it will next it would have tried to input this one, and it would have encountered some exception. Let us go to the output, and we see it could not find the control ID. That is very obvious, because this RPA challenge keeps changing its selector. And so now the objective here was to see the exception screenshot in working, right? So if I just open the folder now, and if I hit refresh, you will see there is an exception screenshot which is available. The exception screenshot give us the details that this was the scene when the bot attempted to type into activity and it got failed, and you will see it is appended with a date and timestamp as well. Okay, so this is how it is easy to use the exception screenshot dot XAML from the robotics enterprise template. You can use this XAML anywhere, plug and play. It can use this in different places. So not necessarily for the browser, you can use this for the Excel screenshot, for the exception in the application of SAP or any desktop application for that matter, or Citrix automation. This screenshot can be directly used. Once again repeating, how can I get it? You can always go to the home. You can open the robotics enterprise template. When you open the robotics enterprise template, inside the framework folder, so this is the robotics enterprise blank template, you will just open the framework folder, and you will see there is an activity called TakeScreenshot.xaml. So in the robotics enterprise framework also, they have created a folder called exception screenshot, which stores the exception here. So that is how easy it is to use this XAML of saving the screenshots. Next, let us see how we can leverage this take screenshot and use the same in the form of an Excel we have seen here, and try to add some more details along with the exception screenshots. Okay, I am back in my UiPath studio. Now the objective here is to create a exception details Excel, something like this, where we would have the exception detail, the exception screenshot path, the exception screenshot embedded, and if you want to add some more details, let us see how we can do that. Okay, so I will quickly go ahead and delete this entire data from here, so that this Excel is blank. I'll delete this guy also. Okay, so assuming that this Excel we are having, and this Excel is blank, Okay, we can always go ahead and create a new Excel for this run. So, and that entirely depends on your automation, how you are doing. You can always, for every run, you can create a new Excel, or you can just have a single Excel and you can keep appending the data to it. Okay, having said that, let me just save this. Okay, so this is empty, sheet 2 is empty, this Excel is blank. Okay, and now we want to add the exception details. Okay, so how do we do that? I am in my UiPath studio. This was the same example which we have just triggered, and in the exception, in the try, we were opening the browser, there is a delay, then we were typing, and this is definitely going to have an exception because we have put a delay and the website it is pointing to keeps changing its selector. That's why in the exception, what we have done in the exception, we are typing the exception and then we are taking the screenshot. Now the objective, we want to store all this information in an Excel file. So for that, the first step would be is to create an Excel file. So in the project folder, if I hit a refresh, this is the same Excel which I was talking about, exception details. I have already created one Excel file here so that it is easy to refer. I can always go ahead and implement a logic where we can just create this one at a different location. Okay, so the first thing would be is to, so what we want to do, so let us go by step. So first we want to do is we want to write the data to an Excel site. So for writing the data, we have an activity called write range. Okay, so I go here and take workbook write range. Now, so workbook write range would, first thing it would expect is a workbook path. So where is the workbook? I will go here and in the exception detail.xlsx, let me just copy this path, ps path, then I go back, I paste it here. Now next, where I want to paste the data, I want to paste the data in the sheet 1, and which cell? The cell is A1 here, right? Now what is the data table? Now we have to pass the data table to the right range. So how can I pass a data table? I do not have a data table, right? My information scattered. So the exception message is here and the exception screenshot is directly getting saved to the folder, right? Just before in the tutorial, I have told you that this workflow, apart from taking the screenshot and saving it in the folder, it also gives us an out argument that can be used to get to know the screenshot position, right? So if we'll go here in the import arguments, you will see there is an out argument. This out argument will be the location of the screenshot which was taken by this XAML, take screenshot XAML. So I hit a control plus K and I will create a variable called str underscore screenshot path, hit OK. And whenever now an exception is occurred and the screenshot is taken, this argument will be having the screenshot path. Okay, and this is the folder where the screenshots are getting saved. Okay, so now for the right range we require a data table, but we don't have a data table, right? The data is all scattered around, right? How can we put all this data into a data table? So for that, what I will do is I will go here and we will build a data table using a activity called build data table. I will drag and drop it here. Next, click on this button and it will ask me how many columns of data table you want. Okay, so let us decide. So the first thing we want to have is the screenshot. So exception type, what is the type of the exception? So I will go here, I will edit it. Let us type this to exception message. Okay, so this would be the column header, this would be of type string. Next, I want to store the exception source, maybe exception source, this would be of type string, hit OK. And next I want to store where exactly the screenshot is being saved, so I will call it screenshot path. Okay, hit OK. So my data table is having 3 columns now, and this I will delete, this I will delete, hit OK. My data table is ready. So what is the name of the data table? We can always go to the properties. In the data table, I will hit control plus K and I will write it as dt underscore temp dt. Why I'm calling this temp dt? Because this data table will always get overridden by the new exception every time we get a new exception, right? Now next, I will just increase the scope of the data table so that it is available. So I will just go in the variables and the dt temp. Now instead of sequence, I will save it to the complete path. I have increased the scope of the data table variable to the complete XAML. Okay, now I have to pass the data table here, right? So we have created the data table. Now I cannot directly pass it here, right? So I have to add all this data to the data table, right? And the data table structure is exception message, source, and the exception screenshot path. Let us see how we can add the data to a data table. So for that, if I go here and if I type add data, so we have something called add data row. What this activity is supposed to do, it will add a data row to the data table. Let us go to the properties. So the properties are very simple. The first one is what is the data table. So I want to add the data to the data table temp. Now I have two options. Either I can pass a data row or I can pass a array of row. So since I do not have a data row, I will go by this option, and I have to pass the data row in the form of an array, right? So as you remember, we have three strings, so the format will be first element followed by comma, then a third element like this, right? So what was the first element? The first element was exception dot message. So how we can get the exception? So if I just cancel this, so if you will see, everything we are writing in the exception block, and whenever we are in the try, it logs an exception. That exception is stored in the object, exception object, and if we just print the exception dot message, if I go to the output, you will see this message is printed, right? So exception, this is the variable which stores the entire detail of the exception, and in the data table we want to store the message, source, and the screenshot path. So the first one is the exception message. So how do I get the exception message? I go to the array row. Here I will type exception dot message, okay, comma, the next was exception dot source, and the next I want to pass was the screenshot, right? So the screenshot, we have stored it in a variable called str underscore screenshot path. I will convert this thing to a array by using curly braces like this, hit OK, and now this statement is ready. So what this statement will do, if I go to the properties, it will add this row of data to the data table, and the data table is dt underscore temp we have just created. Let us go here and initialize the data table so that we don't get a null reference exception. I will just write new system dot data dot data table. Okay, so I have initialized the data table also, that prevent us the null reference exception. Now we have build a data table, we have added a data row. The next thing is I want to write that data table in an Excel which is available at my shared location. Okay, so I will pass here dt underscore temp and hit save. Now let us execute this flow, right? So as of now we are running this process only for a single element, so this element. Okay, now let us go ahead and try to execute and see how it looks like. So what I can do is I can always go ahead and kill the browser at the beginning. That way I don't have to close every time Internet Explorer. How to kill the process? I go here and take a kill process activity. In the properties, in the process name, I will just type IEXPLORE. I don't have to specify the exe here. Okay, it is open. Let us go and validate the file. The file is empty, I suppose. Let us check. Okay, okay, so sheet 1, let us go ahead and delete this sheet. Okay, and I will rename this to sheet 1. Okay, so my Excel is now empty. Okay, so what is the expectation? When I run the process, I should get these details whatever I have mentioned in the Excel. Let's go ahead and run the file. Okay, so bot has killed the IE, it has started the execution. Okay, and if I go to the output, invalid UI node something, and the screenshot was saved as this error. Okay, let us go to the Excel exception here, refresh. I open this, and if you will see, the exception and the entire detail was saved here, right? So this was invalid UI node. I don't know why, but what was the error screenshot? Let us see the screenshot, what has went wrong. Okay, if I go to the screenshots, hit a refresh, so which is the name of the screenshot is 151006, right? So this was the error screenshot which was given, right? So because it was, let us see what exactly happened here. Okay, so it didn't open the eye properly, that's why it has given the invalid node. So if you will see now, it is the exact scenario what I was demonstrating, right? So I have the exception screenshot, I have the exception detail, but to check the screenshot I have to go back to the folder, exception screenshot folder, and then I have to match the name to the sheet that was 006 to 006, and then I could encounter, right? So if I get something exception like this, it is very difficult to get this exception details, right? So that's why we build a solution where it would be better if I could just have this exception screenshot in front of here, so that I do not have to go back to the screen again and validate it, right? So let's see, I will just go ahead and delete this, guys, and I will go here, and in the append range this was okay. We are opening the browser. Okay, so this is the mistake we made, right? So we open the browser and then we kill the browser, right? So actually ideally the kill browser should be at the top. Okay, so this was a good scenario. We could actually see that what is the benefit that we are going to get whenever we embed the image. Okay, let's go ahead and run the process. And now, okay, so one thing here, now instead of writing the data, you can also use the append range, right? So the append range will simply append the data. So as of now I'm just using the right range. Let us first see how it looks like. Let us go ahead and run the file. Okay, so the bot has opened the Internet Explorer. Now it will wait for 3 seconds. It will encounter an exception. Let's go back to the output, and you will see, yes, we have encountered a selector not found exception, and the screenshot is also saved at this location. The screenshot number is 51416. Let's go back to the screenshots, hit refresh, and you will see 51416. And now this screenshot should be, the screenshot path and every detail should be available in our exception details as well, right? So if I just open this Excel file now, so this was the exception, selector not found. This was the source, it was given by this source, and this is the screenshot path, right? So 515416. Now if you will see, now assuming that this list is something like this, right? And now for each and every screenshot, if you I have to validate, I have to every time check the path, go back to the exception screenshot, and then see whether the screenshot, what went wrong, what was the scenario, right? So how it would be good if I have just the image available in front of here, right? So that is what we are going to see now, how we can embed an image from a folder inside an Excel in the correct cell. Now let us see how we can embed an image for which the path is available here, and I want to embed to this cell. So let me just get rid of the extra information from here, and I will just go ahead and delete this. So as of now I only have one exception screenshot and I want to put the image here. Let's see how we can do that. I'll save this thing here, right? So to embed an image in an Excel, what we have to do is we have to use the invoke code activity. Now what is an invoke code activity? If I go here and I type invoke code, so there is an activity which is provided by UiPath for us, where we can write the VB.NET or the C# code, and then we can have arguments here. If I go to the properties, we can specify the language, we can have arguments, and we can write a code here. This code will be responsible for pasting the image in the specific cell, right? So in this video, for this video I have already written the invoke code which we should be pasting it here. So I will just copy paste that code. In case you want to know more about the invoke code activity, I have a detailed video in my channel. I will put the link in the description and you can refer that. That video will guide you what is the difference between the invoke code and invoke VBA, what are the things you should take care while using the invoke code, and other things, other exception, how to handle the assembly reference exception. In all those details are available in that video. Please do refer that one. So as of now for this video I am just using the invoke code directly. So if I go to my project, the version 2, this was already, this is an workflow which I have created. So I will just open and I will copy paste the code from this one. Okay, so I'll just copy the invoke code. Don't worry, I am going to explain each and every line of the code, but I'm not going to type it because that would take much time. I will just delete this, save. Now the code is available in front of me. Let us go ahead and edit the code and see what exactly this code is doing. Okay, so I will just expand it more. The first line of code, these three are the initialization. So since we are dealing with an Excel and workbook and the worksheet, so this dim stands that we are declaring three variables: Excel raw, WB and the WS. This is of the type Excel application, workbook and worksheet. So first of all, we have initialized three variables. Okay, so the next thing we have to do is we have to create an instance of the workbook. So for that we have created this Excel row and this we have created an instance. After that, in the line number 6, we have written Excel dot display alerts equal to false, which means that whenever the Excel is giving some pop-ups, you have to just suppress it. So for that, what I have written is Excel dot display row display alerts is equal to false. That means that it will do whenever if we get some unexpected pop-up, the Excel will suppress those pop-ups. In line number 9, we are telling the UiPath code to open the file. Now the question would be which file. So this file name is coming as an argument, so it's passed as a parameter to this code. So this is the first parameter, file name. So whatever file name we passed to this code, it will open. Once the file is open in the Excel, the next thing is which sheet we want to work on, right? So for different automation, the sheet name would be different. For that region, the sheet name is also coming as an argument or a parameter, we can say. So this first it will open the file, then it will go to that sheet name and it will activate that sheet. Activating the sheet means that whatever the operation from now on we are going to do will happen on this sheet, which is being passed as a parameter. Okay, after that, since we have to paste an image in the cell, so the cell height may not be always fixed, right? So we have to fix the row height so that it can accommodate the image. So the image is very big. So if I go back to the Excel, so this was an Excel, this is a sample Excel, this is not our automation but our previous one. Now in this Excel you will see there is a screenshot which is embedded here, right? So if I just copy paste the image directly in the Excel, the size, the height of the this cell should match this one, right? So if in Excel, if I just select this one, if you'll go to the formats, there is something called column width and then there is something called row height. So if I click on the row height, you will see the row height is set to 280. That means this cell height is 280. And if I go here in this and if I just select this and sorry, in the formats, the width, so this is the width 75.44, right? So what we are doing in the code here is we are telling that for the range wherever the cell reference, now this cell reference is which cell you want to do. So this cell reference is also coming as a parameter. We are telling for this reference the row height should be of this height, and both of this are coming as an parameter to this code. So assuming that if I pass C1 here and I passed 800, so it will go here, it will go to the C1 this guy and it will set the height whatever height is coming as a parameter. So this is this thing. Now once we add the image, where do we want to keep the image? I want to keep the image to the top left. So what does that mean? So if this is an image, I have increased the row height. When I put the image, I want to keep it to the top and to the left like this. So that is possible by this code where we am telling to keep it at the top and the left. And then this is the code that is responsible for putting the image. So how exactly this code is getting the image? So this image path is again coming as a parameter and it will paste the image. Now at the last, what we have to do is we have to auto fit the columns. Why auto fit is required? Because initially these guys, the image path and everything will be like this, right? So what we want to do is we want to auto fit. So manually how I can do auto fit, I will, if I'll just double click, it will just automatically arrange, right? But in Excel I have to use the auto fit function, and I am telling to auto fit for all the data which is available for the column A to Z. Save the Excel and quit the Excel. So by this code I am able to put the image. Okay, so you don't have to memorize this code and copy paste it. If you want this, you can drop me your email ID and I will send this code on your email ID, or I will mail you this entire XAML. Okay, having said that, I hope now you understand this code. Hit okay. Now if I go to the arguments, so as we have seen in the code, the code expect these many parameters, right? So let us go back to our Excel and let's try to pass this one. So if I just open my exception details, so this is the book one that was just for an example. I will close this guy. I don't want this. Don't save. Okay, so here this was our Excel, right? So and where we want to keep the image, we want to keep it in this one, D1. Now let's go to the arguments, see what are the arguments the code is expecting. The first thing it expects is a file name. Where exactly is the file? So we are keeping the file name here, right? So instead of hard coding everything, what we can do is let's make a section of init. I will take a sequence. Okay, and let's take multiple assign. Okay, I will multiple assign activity and we will initialize all the variables. Let us first create these variables. I will go here, hit Control A, Control X, Control K, Control V. File name is created. Okay, let us quickly create all these variables. Okay, okay, and the variables are created. Here all the variables are created. Now the next thing is we have to pass the variable, right? So first thing is the sheet name. So where would the sheet name come from? See, if you remember, this was the sheet. I will quickly pass the sheet name. Next thing is the file name I have passed. Next, sorry, this is not the sheet name, my bad. This is the file name. The next thing is the sheet name. So the sheet name would be sheet 1. Okay, add in the arguments. Let us check what is this image path. Image path. Okay, I will talk about this in a little while. Okay, the next thing is what I want to do is column width. So I will add, so basically column width is not required because we have written a code to auto fit, so this does not make sense. So we will pass the row height and the cell reference. Row height, so it was 250, I guess. What is the type of row height? Let's go and check. Row height is of type int32. Okay, I will go to the variables. Row height is of type int32, so this guy would be 259, like this. And the last thing was cell reference and which cell we want to write. So if I go back to the Excel, I want to write it in D1, so I will pass here D1. Okay, now the question arises where I would get this image path, right? So the image path is already available in the here, right? So now I have two approaches. I can, first thing, I can go to the folder. I will just go back to my project, this one. I can go back to the folder in the exception screenshot. I can read it from here, or I can directly read the Excel file and get it from here. Okay, let's do it by Excel. I have already available in the C column, and D1 is where I want to put the image. Okay, so since we have already written the data in the data table, this one, I can always go ahead and take a for each loop. For each row in which data table? dt temp data table. I will take an, as of now there is only one record, so I will take an assign activity. Hit Control plus K. No, I don't require image path. And where exactly is the image path? It will be available in the first row, right? So I go here in the image path. The value I will type row of which column. So this is 0, this is 1. So I will type here row of 1 dot toString. Hit OK. So what I am doing here, I am telling UiPath, you read the data table, and whatever data you find in the row 1, pass it to the image path. Okay, so by like this, image path will get its value, and in the image path I will just pass this guy, image path. Okay, So the variables are now set. Save everything. I will go here. There is already one screenshot available. Okay, let's delete this. Okay, and let us try to execute the complete code at once. Okay, I will close the extra XAMLs. Let us see what we have done till now. We are in the try block. We have killed the process. We are opening a browser, then we are typing into this some selector. That is definitely going to have an issue. Whenever there is an exception, we go to the exception block. Here we are writing right line just to confirm that whether the bot is running. After that, we have invoke and workflow that is taken by the RE framework. This workflow will take the screenshot and save it in a folder. Once everything is saved in a folder, we have created a build data table, and I am adding all this data, this exception detail, the screenshot, everything in the data table, and the data table is created temporarily. So as of now we are just inserting one row, so the data is getting directly a right range to A1. Okay, next we are iterating the data, whatever the data, and we are getting the image path. Since we have stored the image path in the first second cell, so I am writing row of 1.toString. Okay, and with the help of multiple assign, we are assigning all the parameters that are required for the invoke code, and this code expect these arguments, and these arguments are getting passed from this sequence. Okay, so I will just rename the sequence to something meaningful, sequence for initialization. Okay, let us save everything. If I go to the folder in the exception screenshot, let's delete this guy also. So the folder is blank. In the exception details, if I just open, okay, the sheet 1 is empty. We don't have any data. Let's close this, and this Excel is open. That anyways UiPath will close. I will close this Chrome also. Let us go here and run the file. So the bot will execute. The first thing it will do, it will kill this IE. It has killed the Internet Explorer. Next, it has opened the website RPA challenge. After 3 seconds, it will encounter an exception. The bot will take a screenshot and save the details inside the Excel. Okay, so it says no compiled code to run something public token system dot argument exception. So we have got an exception in the invoke code. Okay, let's see what that is and see what exactly. So the screenshot was saved successfully. Okay, let's go here. If I just check this file, okay, till here the code is working awesome, right? So okay, so 012. Okay, so see, we have made a mistake while passing the image, right? So I just got to know the problem. If you will see here in the image path, right? So where exactly we are getting the image path? The image path is getting in row of 1. So if you will see this is the 0, this is 1, and this is not a image path, right? So image path is available in 0, 1 and 2, right? So let's go ahead and change this to row of 2.toString, save. And for a test, what I will do is I will put a right line so that we can check while the automation is running what is the image path. Okay, save everything. Let's go back to the folder. I can leave it like this, but I want to have a clean run, so I will go quickly to the exception details as well and delete this guy. Save everything, close, go back to UiPath Studio and run the file. Okay, so the bot has started its execution. It will kill this Excel first. Okay, now it has again reopened the RPA challenge.site. It will try to put the name. We will encounter an exception. Okay, and once the exception is encountered, it will try to save in the exception screenshot folder, and then the code which we have written in the invoke code will embed the image, screenshot image in the Excel. Okay, let's go back to the output. Okay, and see, this was the error. The screenshot was saved as this path, and this is the PNG path. Okay, let's go back to the folder, refresh everything. So in the exception screenshot, I see this is a screenshot of the exception being captured. Now if I go back to the exception details, Okay, so we are successfully able to get all the details in the Excel. So this is the selector. Okay, so this was the activity. You have automation.activities. This is the path of the exception screenshot, and this is the screenshot, right? So similarly, we can add more details to this Excel. So this way you can have a clear picture of the exception screenshot along with other relevant details. Okay, so let me close this Excel. I'll go back to UiPath Studio, and I want you to have a look at the imports. So these are the imports which are done here. So if you'll just open it, so you will see UiPath office.core and interop.excels are added as a namespace here. Why we have added this as a reference? Because if we'll go to the invoke code here, I will go here in the edit code. So interop.excel application was used here, and here we have used this guy microsoft.office.core. Okay, so ideally whenever we use this namespace, they has to be imported, and to import we have to just type here Microsoft like this, microsoft.office.core outlook word. So in case I want to add outlook reference, I can just go ahead, hit an enter, and it will add it. Okay, so these are to the imports. Talking about the dependencies, the project is using these dependencies, Excel and this interop.excel. I hope you are aware of this one. Okay, so I will just remove the debugger from here. So in this XAML, we have seen that we were able to do this copy paste of image into an Excel only for one file. But in the demonstration, which was being demonstrated at the beginning of the video, we were able to see that we were successfully able to copy paste multiple images for multiple records, right? How did you do that? Let me just close this XAML. I'll go back to the project. In the project we have something called this guy type name version 2.xaml. This was the xaml which was being demonstrated. This is the same process. We are killing the Excel, we are opening the browser. Here we are so in the previous video, in the previous XAML which was demonstrated, we were typing the name only once, right? I passed my name. But here what we have done is I have taken a string list of names, and it was having three names, so that's why this loop was executed thrice. So for each of the item, the uh, item was being put into the browser, and that's why we were getting three exceptions. In our case we were getting one exception, but here what we are trying for the all the list of the names, we were just refreshing the browser and we were getting the exception thrice. So whenever there was an exception encountered, if we go to the catch section, this is the same code. Now you will be able to relate. We were writing the exception message, taking the screenshot, then we build the data table. This is the same code which we have seen, and writing that thing to the and appending the range, right? So if you will see in the first, in the XAML which we saw, we were using the right range, but since here there were multiple records, so I was using an append range. So now what will happen when this code was executing, it will print the every exception detail in the exception detail this Excel thrice, right? So if I put four names, the four records will be appended to this Excel. Okay, so now at the end of the process, what I was doing is I was importing a workflow that was called embed image. And what I was doing in the embed image, if I just open the workflow, this is the same workflow. So the column width, column height, I hope now you understand. We were reading the file which was being saved. So where we get this file name, this file name was being passed as an argument. So this is just for a better code structure that I thought to put the embed image in a separate workflow. Okay, here now the data is being read, so we read the Excel. For that matter, it can be any of the Excel, right? So we were reading the data in dt Excel data. We were looping through the Excel data, getting the image path, getting the cell reference, and then using the same invoke code. So if I just click on the edit code, you will see this is the same code which was being executed and demonstrated in the video. Okay, so this was the same code. Okay, and if you look at the arguments, these arguments will be familiar to you now. So that is how I was able to successfully put all the images one by one, and at the end I was just incrementing the cell reference. So this is just a simple logic. The cell reference was initialized with the value 1. I will go here, let me go here. See, cell reference value was initialized with 1. So first time it will paste the image in C1, then C2, and then C3, like that, right? So you can just adjust this logic as per your need. So I hope now you understand what are the exception screenshots and how we can use them in UiPath Studio, how you can embed a screenshot in an Excel for the better viewing and a better reporting purpose point of view. Having said that, let's have a quick recap what we have seen in this video. In this video, we have looked what are the exception screenshot with the help of example. Post that, we have seen how we can reuse the take screenshot activity XAML from the RE framework and how we can use that in any of the sequence or the flowchart for our purpose. Post that, we have seen the alternative approach where we were able to save the exception screenshot embedded in an Excel for a better view of the transaction or the exception history. After that, we have seen the invoke code activity, which we have demonstrated that how can invoke code activity be useful to embed an image inside an Excel sheet, and all of this we were able to see with the help of a demonstration. So that is all for this video. I will wrap up this video here. In case you face any difficulty, you can drop your queries in the comment box and I will revert as soon as possible. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel and thank you for watching. Happy automation.